This video is called How the Non-Muslims Testify Physically to the Tolerance of Islam. It's a very provocative title. If anything, it sounds like a threat. You're here. You could be dead by our hands, but instead you're alive. Praise be Allah that He holds us back from killing you all until you convert. Having watched this video, I'll say that it's not necessarily that. At the same time, he isn't exactly not saying that either. This is another Zakir Naik video. It's hard to find videos about Islam that are in English, and Zakir Naik is usually speaking English, so I usually default to him.
Today, in India, more than 75% are non-Muslims. 75%. If we Muslims wanted at that time, we could have forced every non-Muslim to accept Islam at the point of the sword. We didn't do it. If we had done that, there wouldn't have been more than 75% non-Muslims.
If we wanted to kill you, we would have. Be happy we didn't kill you. We could have killed you and forced your kids to adopt our religion and culture, but we didn't. Yeah, that fills me with confidence. Really a peaceful and loving religion.
These 75% non-Muslims of India, they are giving shahada. They are bearing witness that Islam was not spread by the sword. At that time when we ruled India for 1,000 years, the Muslims that they wanted, they could have forced every non-Muslim to accept Islam. But they didn't do it. Because Islam does not give permission. Islam says, "La ikraha fid din," there is no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error. So these more than 75% non-Muslims of India today are giving shahada. They are bearing witness that Islam wasn't spread by the sword.
There's something hard to understand that you said, for an American audience at least, which was, Islam says there's no compulsion in religion, stands clear from error. Just wanted to clear that up. Anyway, on to the actual point. Look, we didn't kill 75% of India's population. We didn't genocide millions or billions of people. That means we are a peaceful, loving religion. Dude, Al-Qaeda flew 2 planes into the Twin Towers on September 11th in the name of Allah. Islamic State, known primarily by the acronym ISIS or ISIL, is still slaughtering non-Muslims and oppressing women all throughout the Middle East. Muslims have genocided entire peoples and cultures, such as Egypt, Morocco, they tried it in Spain. It happened initially in Arabia, which didn't used to be Muslim. Islam exists because of genocide. You would not be Muslim if your ancestors' land was not invaded by Muslims. Egypt would still be Cleopatra's Egypt if not for the Muslim conquest of the 600s. And, again, Arabia would still be Kufr if not for the slaughter of the people who refused to bow before Muhammad.
Which Muslim army went to Indonesia today? According to statistics, Indonesia has the maximum number of Muslims in one country. According to India, about 229 million Muslims in Indonesia, or 39 or 240 million. In India, the government says 215 million, 14.3%. According to me, it's much more than 280 million. More than 20% are Muslims. But even if you agree, so Indonesia, which is theoretically supposed to be the country which has maximum number of Muslims in the world, I'm asking you a question. Which Muslim army went to Indonesia? Which Muslim army went to Malaysia? Which Muslim army went to the east coast of Africa? Which sword? The businessmen went there to do business. When they did business, they preached the religion and people accepted Islam. Which army went to Indonesia? Which army went to Malaysia? Which army went to Gambia? Which army went to the east coast of Africa? To Senegal?
Which Muslim army went to Egypt? To Turkey? Which Muslim army rose up after Muhammad to spread Islam to Arabia? Which Muslim warlord claimed to hear the word of a god, the supposed one true God, and decide to spread this religion? A religion that teaches jihad, the cleansing of non-Muslims from Muslim lands, and the killing of kufr. A religion that says that Jews are subhuman. A religion that teaches the murder of infidels. A religion that promotes oppression of women.
Later on, the Britishers come and they play games. So these countries are giving shahada that Islam was not spread by the sword.
Again with the, look, we didn't kill you. Look how tolerant we are. I'm sure Islamic State is very, very tolerant. I'm sure Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden were very, very tolerant. I'm sure the government of Iran and the terrorist group Hamas are very, very tolerant, aren't they? You are, and I'm sure you don't intend to do this, but you are essentially threatening all of us non-Muslims with those types of events and people. We could act like these people, but we aren't. Sure, the non-Muslims of India show the very tolerance of Indian Muslims to not go out and murder random people, which is also called not being a fucking psychopath, but in no way does it demonstrate the broad tolerance of Islam itself. Islam is a religion, just like all Abrahamic religions, that promotes violence inherently. It is. There is no getting around that.
Which sword? Thomas Carlyle, he writes in his book, Heroes and Hero Worship, that you should first get your sword. Every new idea initially begins in the mind of one. In one man, in the full world alone. And if one man alone propagates and picks up the sword, it will be no benefit. First you have to get the sword. Which sword is Thomas Carlyle talking about? He's talking about the sword of the intellect. I started my talk by quoting a verse of the Quran of Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse 125, where he says, Udu ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal mu'azzat al hasna wajadun billati ahsan. Invite all to the way of their Lord with wisdom and way of preaching, and argue with them and reason with them in the ways that are best, most gracious. It's the sword of the intellect. It's not the sword of steel. Even if we had the sword of steel, we could not use it.
Now, this is a more acceptable rhetoric. The idea that you should spread Islam through intellectual arguments and not through bloodshed. But this was not your initial argument. Your initial argument was that us non-Muslims should be happy that Muslims do not kill us. It is very different. To my atheist brothers in India, I want to know, do you get Zakir Naik on television? I don't know how much you use actual cable anymore. We basically don't at all anymore in America. But if you do use cable. And second question, related, what do you think of Zakir Naik? Do you get other preachers, and for what religions? Is this kind of rhetoric common in India? Or is there more coexistence? I would imagine that India is a place full of peaceful coexistence, given its history, but I don't want to assume something like that, especially when I am being so clearly presented with an example of the opposite. Yes, in one way, Zakir Naik is promoting coexistence, but he's doing so by indirectly threatening Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, atheists, Jews, and so on. I've always wondered, is Zakir Naik a Shia or a Sunni? How many Shia and Sunni live in India proportionally? Please engage in the comments, it pushes my video out to more people.
Allah says in Surah Baqarah chapter 2 verse 256, La ikraha fid deen, there's no compulsion in religion, truth stands out clear from error. Anyone who holds and grasps the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will take you from darkness to light. There's no compulsion in religion. It is the sword of intellect, sword of hikmah. And today, we find that the fastest growing religion in the world today, in America, it's Islam. The fastest growing religion in Europe is Islam. And if you read the Reader Digest Almanac Yearbook of 1984, and this article was repeated in the Plain Truth magazine, it gave the increase in the major world religion in a span of 50 years, from 1934 to 1984. And that article said the maximum increase in religion in this 50 years was Islam, 235%. Christianity, only 47%.
Yes, an ad populum fallacy is the best argument to prove the truth of Islam. It is really awfully absurd of a claim to say that Islam is the fastest growing religion to mean something about tolerance or not spreading it by steel or something else. The main reason Islam grows so fast in the West is actually, if I can give my own personal theory, related to the rejection of Christianity but a belief in Christian teachings. When one holds on to Christian beliefs, heaven and hell, the one true God, the holy book, objective morality, it is hard to leave Abrahamic religions as a whole. If one is going to leave Christianity but stay Abrahamic, for the most part, they are either going to create a new religion or they can join Islam. Yes, you can change sect, and it happens all the time, but for the most part people join Islam. This is my own theory. I have no evidence behind it. Take it with an ocean's worth of salt. Either way, the main argument persists. Even if Islam is the fastest growing religion because of intellectual debate, it would still remain true that one cannot base the truthfulness of Islam on this fact. One has to independently argue for the truth of Islam.
I'm asking you the question, which war took place in these 50 years from 1934 to 1984, which converted or increased the number of Muslims all over the world? Which war? 235%. Islam, only 47%. That means 5 times more. 5 times. 47 multiplied by 5 is 235. Islam spread 5 times more than Christianity in the 50 years. Which war took place in these 50 years which forced non-Muslims to become Muslims?
Between 34 and 84, there were many wars. World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War. I'm just naming the American ones. There was also the Israel-Palestine War, which is still somehow happening today. I'm sure it would stop if both sides realized their gods are completely made up, but no, we can't do that. That aside, there were many large and small wars, global, local, and civil, that began, continued through, or ended in the 50 years between 1934 and 1984. Your arguments are completely futile for proving the truth of Islam, which is fine, but they also fail to prove the tolerance of Islam. When we discuss the tolerance of a religion, we are not discussing if the members are bloodthirsty savages or not. I know that Muslims are not psychopathic genocidal maniacs. I am friends with many Muslims, and none of them have so much as yelled at me. When we discuss the tolerance of a religion, we are discussing things like the teachings on women's rights, the teachings on homosexuals' rights, the teachings on how one should respond to other religions, etc. For example, Hinduism is usually considered a very tolerant religion, because Hindus believe that all other religions have some amount of truth to them. Side note, Hinduism is not a unified religion. Results may vary. Islam is not a tolerant religion, and there are many Muslims who are not very tolerant at all. These Muslims are those who, for example, shoot up Bondi Beach, hijack planes, strap bombs to their chests, or even just refuse to shake the hands of Jews because the Quran prescribes it.
Wa alaikum. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam or wa alaikum?
Wa alaikum.
No, wa alaikum salam. Why not wa alaikum salam?
Why are you going to teach me a lesson or something?
No, because I said peace be upon you. I said,
Yeah.
and you replied that, and you, rather than peace be upon you back, yeah?
Yeah.
And so the traditional greeting is, I say assalamu alaikum and you say wa alaikum salam, yeah?
Yeah.
So let's try again. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum.
So the reason he's doing this
Right.
is there's a hadith that says you can't say wa alaikum salam back to a Jew.
Okay, anyone who comes to me, any Muslim who comes to me say Assalamu alaikum,
Yeah.
I will say Wa alaikum assalam.
Okay.
Right? But you are a Jewish.
I am a Jew.
Yes?
Proud Jew.
Okay, go and say to me. Go and say to me.
Wa alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum.
So you treat people
You treat
differently
Muslims
according
different.
to their religion.
You wish Muslims
Oh, how-
peace.
How divisive.
Almost all Muslims are okay people, because people have an innate sense of sympathy that founds morality outside of religious teachings, which attempt to cloud this sense of sympathy for others, but there are extremely violent, crazy Islamic terrorist groups, and these people are just as much Muslims as the American hippie guy who loves everyone and prays to Allah casually and simply refuses to eat pork and celebrates Ramadan with his family. But the Islamic terrorist groups are usually fundamentalist groups. The problem with these groups is that they take the Quran very literally. I would argue this is a more accurate reading of the text, but when you read it like this, the violence becomes apparent. And I'm not just picking on Muslims. The exact same thing applies with Christianity, Judaism, even some sects of Buddhism, and Hinduism. Although less so with Indian religions because they share a few common concepts relating directly to peace, harmony, and love for all living beings. The point remains, tolerance is not an inherent feature of a person based on their religion, but Islam is a religion that is not very tolerant. I don't particularly like the word tolerance. I feel it's been changed to fit a particular political message and position. And I won't disclose if I support that position or not. I think my video on Jim Bob illuminates that well enough. But I do feel that it has been changed. I am intolerant of Islam. I am intolerant of Christianity and Judaism and even Hinduism Buddhism, and Jainism. I do not accept that someone should be raised in these religions, and I do not accept that these teachings are just A-okay. They aren't. Even a religion like Jainism, which essentially teaches my perspective on the love of other living beings for just being alive, should not exist. Because religion is inherently bad. It reduces freedom of thought. It dims the mind and deceives by nature. Religion is the inability to say, I don't know. Religion is the inability to say, I could be wrong. Religion is the inability to say, I'll withhold judgment till I get further evidence. Religion is bad. I do not tolerate it. And I honestly don't care if you tolerate anything in particular either, Zakir Naik, or any Muslims or non-Muslims who might be watching this. But when you become violent towards others, when you say that other people deserve to be tortured forever, when you say that other people are inferior in some cosmological way to you, that's when we have an issue. And that is something else I will not tolerate. There are stupid people. There are people who believe abject delusion. There are people who have no idea how this world functions on a basic level. But they are just as much a person as you and me. We are all living beings. That is what I mean by person, a living being. We are all people, and we all deserve to be treated with that basic level of respect. The right to life. The right to believe as we so choose, which is not the right to be immune from argument. Zakir Naik, I understand that you likely did not mean it in this way, but your video is essentially a threat to non-Muslims. I do not tolerate this. Please understand that. We are all monkeys. Well, I'm a demon, but every single human being is just another monkey. All just apes, all just hominini. Some are a little more confused than others. Like you, Zakir Naik. You are very confused. And very dumb, although you seem intelligent enough. Also very arrogant. As I've said previously, I do not insult people. If you don't like what I say, fix yourself. I say only what I see. Thank you to my patrons. As of the time of writing this script, that would be Benjamin Johnson on the Enjoyer tier, and Michael McConnell on the Connoisseur tier. Thank you all very much for watching. Namaste to anyone in India. I would appreciate if you answered my questions from earlier because I am genuinely curious about your personal experiences, and have a good night.